Not a month goes by without regimes in Moscow, Minsk, or Pyongyang threatening the world with nuclear annihilation. This is an often used threat that has been used in the rhetoric of superpowers for decades. In recent years, it has again become the main argument in neo-imperialist rhetoric. Any careless word or move can start an open armed confrontation, including with nuclear weapons. Russia has transferred part of its nuclear arsenal to Belarus, officially at Lukashenko's behest, unofficially deploying nuclear figures on its part of the chessboard. That's why the topic of supporting the eastern flank with a similar arsenal is back on the NATO agenda. The topic was taken up by the Polish president. I have no doubt that there is a necessary response from NATO countries. There is simply a need for an adequate response. Therefore, I believe that the entire area of the North Atlantic Alliance should be tightly protected with nuclear weapons. And therefore, I believe that the nuclear sharing program should also be extended to the countries of NATO's eastern flank. The Polish Foreign Ministry almost immediately announced that the topic is off the table. But as analysts point out, its appearance just now is no coincidence. It is probing the mood in the countries of the alliance itself, which, although they unanimously declare a policy of deterrence, especially in Western Europe, mainly end on declarations. It is certainly not a coincidence that President Duda said about Poland's readiness to participate in nuclear sharing, because indeed in a few months there will be a NATO summit in Washington, where some important decisions will probably be made. This year's NATO summit in Washington is expected to be another roadmap for securing the eastern flank, all the more so because the outlook for the war in Ukraine is not optimistic for Kiev, and consequently for the countries of our region.
We have a very aggressive neighbor. There's no way you can run away from that cost. We can only invest now in Ukraine's security. That's good for them, it's good for us, and it actually reduces the overall cost of coping with Russia as a neighbor. If we allow Putin to win, then the cost will go up, not down.
But the nuclear support of NATO's eastern flank is not only out of favor with Russia or Belarus. Berlin and Paris are also skeptical, which according to commentators should come as no surprise. This would change a certain arrangement, perhaps not so much of forces, but of the arrangement of the transfer of U.S. forces in Europe, and this seems to be despite all the efforts of Berlin and Paris to make it as imprinted as possible in Europe. Still, they still want to remain the sure disposer of that U.S. military footprint in Europe. The idea of supporting NATO's eastern flank with a nuclear arsenal could be of importance to the United States itself, as it could strengthen its position in that region of the world. The best negotiators are unpredictable. They come up with certain assumptions, throw certain topics on the table, and look around and see how their negotiating partners behave when they have just those topics, even the most extreme ones often. They comment on them, and only on the basis of the lessons learned from those comments and behavior, they try to draw some common ground and come to an agreement. Everything will depend on Warsaw-Washington relations, also after a possible change of administration in the White House. Hence, it should also come as no surprise that the topic of a nuclear umbrella over Poland comes just days after Polish President Andrzej Duda met with presidential candidate Donald Trump.